Hi everyone, and thank you for the invitation for both Matt and I to present here at the HPS Research Development Seminars. I'm Dr. Mike Todorovic, and I'll be presenting today with Dr. Matt Barton. We're both active researchers within the Menzies Health Group, and we're senior lecturers of health science within the School of Nursing and Midwifery. A lot of our research centres on utilising and leveraging social media platforms for research and education purposes. And one of those platforms that we use is Twitter. So today, unlike most seminars presented here, we're providing academics and support staff with a how-to guide for using Twitter, providing you with tips, tricks, and hints on how to use this platform within academia. So this seminar has a really simple structure. We're focusing on the what, the why, and the how of Twitter. What is Twitter? So Matt's going to explore, for those of you who may not be accustomed yet, what Twitter actually is, why you should use Twitter. So if you're an academic or part of the support team, why would Twitter be a useful platform for you to utilize? And how should you use Twitter? So how can you craft the best tweet to maybe promote exposure or to maximize engagement? So let's now throw to Matt to explore what Twitter is.
Thanks, Mike. So let's start off with the definition. So what exactly is Twitter? The co-founder, Jack Dorsey, was asked this question, and he didn't really know how to explain it, but he did give this quote. He said that Twitter is the world. So what does that mean? Well, basically, Twitter reflects what the world is. It's different to different people at different times, and we really should embrace that. Now, when the founders of Twitter were trying to figure out how to name it, Twitter itself, or at least from the inception, was this kind of SMS-like communication system. They come across the term tweet, which we know tweet is something to do with birds, young birds, chirps, but there's also a definition of a tweet before Twitter, which was a short burst of inconsequential information. And they all liked that as an idea, and this is where the tweet came from, and then subsequently Twitter. But I think a better definition is that it is a micro blogging and social networking service on which users would post and interact through messages known as tweets. So registered users can post, they can like, and they can retweet, but if you're unregistered, you can only view on public sites. Users can access Twitter through browsers, like you can see here on a computer, or they can use through mobile devices like their phone or iPads as an example. So what we can see here on this screen, this is the actual page of Twitter itself. So over here we can see the name and the handle. We can see that they've made 6,500 tweets. They're following about 145 people, but they're followed by 62 million people, and they've had about 5,000 likes. Here is where the blogging occurs. So this is constantly updated. It's like almost like a news feed, and this usually comes from tweets from the page itself, but in most commonly from the followers. And so this is the page that you would see on a typical Twitter page. So now let's have a look at some demographics of Twitter use. Firstly, let's compare Twitter to other social media networks. So number one and number two most used social media networks on the planet is Facebook and YouTube. Facebook, just under 3 billion users per month, whilst YouTube's just over 2.5 billion users per month. Now compare that to Twitter. Twitter is just under 500 million users per month. In terms of use, about 70% of Facebook users are on there every single day, whilst YouTube, maybe a touch over 50% of its users access YouTube every single day, but Twitter, about 46% of its users are on there every single day, and 30% of its users are on there more than once per day. What about the individual? So it's almost 50-50 when it comes to male-female use on Twitter. The age category, about 42% of Twitter users are in this age category, about 20 to 20-year-olds into the early 30-year-olds, but under 50-year-olds in Twitter is about 80%. So the vast majority of Twitter users are under the age of 50. Compare that to Facebook, the majority of its users sit in this age category. So about 70%, 77% of users are in this kind of age group, just under 50 years of old. So about between 30 and 50 years of age is Facebook. Whilst the others, Instagram, Snapchat, and TikTok, are utilized by the younger population. Now let's have a look at what countries access it. So first of all, Twitter users are mostly from cities or urban areas by far. America, so out of the 500 million users throughout the world, just under 80 million come from America. The next country outside America is Japan. So interestingly, within Japan, Twitter is the most popular Western social media. So it comes ahead of YouTube and Facebook. So Twitter is number one there, which is quite interesting. In India, it's probably approaching 30 million users now. And quite interestingly, 3.2 million users in China, even though it's banned. In Australia, it's about 5 million users. Let's quickly look at some information about users of Twitter. The Pew Research Center found that 80% of tweets on Twitter come from only 10% of its users. The average American would only tweet twice per month. They would follow 89 people, and they in turn are only followed by 29 people. 13% of accounts are private. So that would mean if you're not a registered user, you would not be able to access these sites. Who is the most popular person on Twitter? Number one is Barack Obama. So he has approximately 112 million followers. Number two, Justin Bieber. Number three, Katy Perry. Now, what about the most popular tweets of all time? Well, number four, the fourth most popular tweet was Ellen DeGeneres. So she took this selfie at the 2014 Oscars with a whole lot of celebrities behind her. And so when she made this tweet, presumably all these celebrities, which will have a lot of followers themselves, retweeted. And so this got about 3 million retweets. So the take-home point there is if you want a lot of retweets, you need to know a lot of celebrities. But the number one most popular tweet of all time came from a CEO called Yusaku. He's a Japanese billionaire. And basically what he did is promised 100 people a lot of money. So in 2018-2019, over the Christmas New Year period, his company Zozo made a lot of money, 10 billion yen. And so he basically promised 100 people $1 million yen each. All they needed to do was retweet his tweet. And so if you did that, then you're in the running of gaining that amount of money. So again, in this case, if you want retweets, you've got to pay people.
So why should people within academia, such as educators, researchers, and support staff, use Twitter? Well, for many reasons. It's fun, it's entertaining, it's a great way to communicate, but I'm going to focus on two major points to justify my why here. These 2 points are networking collaboration and digital scholarship. First and foremost, Twitter is a social networking site. So it's got over 100 million users every single day. So this platform provides users, like academics, for example, with an enormous potential reach. Recent work has shown that compared to other social media platforms that are popular with academics, such as academia.edu and ResearchGate, Twitter networks are larger and better at fostering new connections and collaborations. As the site has many users that aren't within academia, it's also a great way to connect with the public, for example. So depending on your intentions with the platform, maybe it's connecting with key stakeholders. So this may include prospective collaborative business partners or even philanthropic funding bodies. Personally, I've sparked a number of collaborative relationships on Twitter that's resulted in research projects, publications, invitations to present, and also paid consultation work. And importantly, for academics and support staff, Twitter can be great evidence of digital scholarship. So digital scholarship is the use of digital evidence to achieve scholarly and research goals. And it can include both scholarly communication using digital media, but also research on digital media. Recently, there have been some calls from academics around the globe to include a wide range of social media activities that one can participate in, ranging from content creation to education to public outreach to even the leadership of institutional accounts. All of this can and should be included in an academic promotion portfolio. And like I said, there's been a big push within the literature. It's got a lot of support actually to push this forward. Because Twitter's main feature is that of microblogging in the form of short tweets, it allows educators to reach a large audience really quickly. As the format of the tweet is constrained, so limited by word count and also video length if you're deciding to use a video as opposed to just text, it provides a novel way to synthesize complex information into these bite-sized digestible tweets. And the benefits of research, or I should say the benefits of Twitter for research is broad and significant. So it allows you to cultivate a public persona, maybe as an expert in the field or as a communicator. And you can share your research quickly and simply to both the scientific and non-scientific communities. If done properly, Twitter can even promote the discovery of your research. And this is commonly done by research, but it's often done poorly. So shortly we'll highlight some tips on how to do this best. It can also improve your citation count, which is obviously important for all researchers. Studies have reviewed tweet counts as impact indicators for academic papers, and it appears that they have statistically significant but small positive correlations with citation counts. This effect seems to be most strong for those publications and tweets within the medical sciences. And considering the fact that Twitter can provide you with metric data, so you can gather this data, you can actually identify the degree of impact that you have, again, both within and outside the research community. And finally, you can use Twitter as a call to action. So you can identify participants for research projects, and you can even disseminate surveys and questionnaires.
Thanks, Mike. So now we're going to move on to how to use Twitter. So we're going to give you some tips, some suggestions on how best to use Twitter. But before we get to these, I want to first give you an introduction to some of the new terms, some of the new lingo that you'll encounter using Twitter. So the most important thing to get your head around is what is a tweet. So a tweet is essentially a message or a post that you will do on Twitter. This is the whole thing that makes up Twitter. So a tweet can be, like you can see here with Ellen, this is made up of text. So she's posted just information through text, but you can also post videos, photos, links, and these are the things that can be shared. So when we talk about sharing, the term that we use is retweeting. So once you start to follow people, you will see within your timeline their tweets pop up. And what you can do is you can hit this symbol, which is the retweet symbol, and that means you share their tweet on your timeline. Now you can do that on its own, so there's nothing associated with it. You just press retweet, or you can choose to write something or post something alongside it. So again, that is a way that people that are following you can actually see you retweeting some other person's tweet. The next is a hashtag. So a hashtag is essentially a keyword or a phrase that is around a body of content. Okay, so for instance, you could have the hashtag sign followed by COVID-19. So anything to do with COVID-19 would be encapsulated with this hashtag. So if you wanted to follow something around COVID-19, that's what you would be looking at, is the hashtag COVID-19. So when you do posts, you would possibly think about, if it's got important content areas, to do that hashtag. However, you have to be careful that you use the most appropriate hashtags, because if you possibly get it wrong, it could backfire on you. And an example is here, where this company, which is a bakery, did a post or a tweet that said, "Who's not guilty about eating all the tasty treats they want?" And their hashtag was hashtag not guilty. Now, when they posted this tweet, it was at a concurrent point in time that there was a big trial taking place, and the person in the trial was found not guilty. That became very controversial. And so a hashtag associated with that trial was hashtag not guilty. But because this bakery put the hashtag not guilty in it, it got caught up within the controversy of that particular trial, and that somewhat backfired for that bakery. So just be mindful of the hashtags that you do use, that it is appropriate to your tweet. Finally, we have the handles. So the handles are essentially just your username. This has to be less than or 15 characters or less, and this probably should be something that identifies you. So for instance, we've got Dr. Carl here, and his handle is Dr. Carl, full words. Okay, so that can identify him very easily. The next thing I want to talk about is, what is your plan, or what is your intention for using Twitter? This is very important because this will essentially dictate everything that you do on this platform. So the first thing you need to understand is, what is your purpose? Why are you here? Why are you using Twitter? So this needs to be crystal clear on why you're here in the first place. So you might just want to engage with Twitter to be kept up to date with news or with research. So the people that you would be following could be news outlets like the ABC, like CNN or BBC, and you're just following their tweets and their updates to keep up to date with the news. Or you may want to keep abreast of the latest research, so all the new trials of the vaccine around COVID. So you could follow certain individuals that post about the latest research being released around the COVID vaccines. Or you might be a researcher yourself and you want to tell your audience about what you're doing or what you've just achieved, or the paper that you've just published, or the grant that you have scored. So this is around the purpose. Why are you ultimately here? So we've understood the purpose. Now we move to the audience. So this is where you're directing your communication. So if you're a researcher and you want to talk about everything around your research, this would be directed to that context, and you would talk in a way that they would understand. If you're an educator, you may want to broaden it a bit and think about the students or the people who are wanting to be educated around that particular space. Or if you're a business, who's buying your product? Lastly, we move to content. Content could be a little bit more challenging because you need to be able to refine it over time or curate it to understand what they're wanting to receive from you. So this may take a little bit of time, but ultimately people don't want to just hear you big noting yourself, telling them about your achievements. They want to get things like facts, information, education, entertainment, inspiration. So you need to think about that with the content that you do post. Now this slide, I'm just giving you an example of 3 different entities. We have a researcher, we have an institute, and we have an educator. So firstly, we have a researcher, Jonathan Eason. So he is a researcher in America. So his purpose is to talk about and disseminate his research. So that would be important for him to first know. And when he builds his audience, it's going to be people who are interested around the content of what he's doing in his research. And that will probably also dictate on the particular posts that he will be delivering and communicating. The next one is a school of nursing within America, and again, their audience is health professionals, but probably specifically nursing students or future nursing students. So they're going to try to curate what they're posting to attract or market potential students to come to their school, because they can see it is a good quality school of nursing that they want to be affiliated with. And then finally over here we've got Dr. Mike, who is a health educator, and so his purpose is to deliver really complex health information in a very concise manner. So a lot of his posts are around short, sharp videos that a wide public can engage with and understand, and so that is around education. Finally, what I thought we could finish up on is an example of how you would set up your Twitter page or Twitter account. Now, this particular image is of a phone. As I said earlier, you can access Twitter on a browser through your computer or through an iPad, but most people do use Twitter through their phone. So I thought I would use it in this form so you can see how it would be displayed to help you set up your own Twitter account. The first thing you need to have is your profile picture. Now, Twitter is fairly professional, so I would advise you to use a picture of yourself that is identifiable to you as an individual, if you are indeed using Twitter as you as a person. It's also advisable to use a picture that is similar over all your social media, so it can be easily identified when people are looking for you. And if you are affiliated to a university, you may want to use a similar picture that is used on the university's website. So again, you're very easily identified. The next thing is the banner or the header image. The first thing you need to have here is it can't exceed 1500 pixels wide and 500 pixels tall. This header or banner is usually something that will go alongside your profile picture. So it's a cover image or a cover photo, and it helps to showcase what you do. So in the case of Mike here, he's around education, so he is showcasing that he's got a YouTube channel. Let me put my marker on. YouTube channel, he's got a podcast, and he does medical education, and you can follow him on these other social media outlets. Or if you're a business, you may want to showcase something around the products that you sell. The next thing is your handle, which I spoke about before, but that's probably something close to your name. As you can see here, we've got Dr. Mike Todorovic, so you can identify him straight away by his handle. You want to probably use a handle that you would want to use in 5 years' time. So if you're, let's say, a student, and in 5 years' time you're not going to be a student, you may reconsider saying something that you're a student in your handle. Next is a bio. So this is essentially everything about you. It has to be in 160 characters or less. So keep it brief, but try to be inventive with what you say here, because people are wanting to know about you and you want to get the most across as you can. So Mike is telling you that he's a health communicator. He's on YouTube and he podcasts, but he's also a senior lecturer. He's affiliated at Griffith University, and you can see the handle at the university here. So that's an important addition. He's also part of an educational company, Dr. Matt and Dr. Mike's Medical Education, and he's got a couple of hashtags here which he would commonly use within his posting. So medical Twitter, medical education, and then we've got FOMED, which is free online education, medical education. So that's again very common Twitter, very common hashtag, should I say, that are very commonly used within Mike's tweets, and that would be a whole community of medical educators that would commonly use those hashtags. So do be mindful of using those within your bio. And then lastly, if you've got links, so if you do have a website or if you've got access to resources that you like a research page, or maybe at Griffith University you want to use your Griffith Experts page, you could put that in there so people can find your information very quickly.
So let's take a look at the fun stuff now, how to craft a tweet. But before we do this, we must think about those 3 points that Matt highlighted earlier. So you need to begin any tweet that you post up by asking yourself, one, what is the purpose of this tweet? Is it to promote your work or maybe yourself? Is it to highlight some recent results or maybe educate a specific population about some recent or important finding? It doesn't matter if it's any of these, which one it may be, but you do need to be aware as to the purpose of your tweet, because this is going to determine who your audience is going to be, which is going to determine the way you craft your message. So now in real time, we're going to craft a tweet. The tweet is going to be based on a publication, on a paper. Its purpose is to promote the results or outcome of the paper. And the intended audience is going to be that of health professionals. So the content that I'm going to craft is going to be simple to understand, yet informative for health professionals, but it also must be eye-catching. So what you need to do is you need to take the Twitter app on your phone, open it up, and what you're going to find in the bottom right-hand corner is that plus sign. That plus sign is what you need to click, and it takes you to where you need to go in order to craft a tweet. So your tweet could just simply be words or characters. It could just be emojis or a combination of the two. It could be a video. Now remember, if it's a video, it can only be 2 minutes and 20 seconds long. Keep that in mind. Or it might be an image or a GIF or GIF. It's entirely up to you. It ideally should be a combination of a number of these different things. So I said to you that the whole purpose of this particular tweet was to tweet the results of a paper. And so what we've got here is the paper that I want to tweet. Now, I didn't actually write this paper. It's not my paper. I'm just using it as an example. And you can see that the title of the paper is Sodium Intake and Hypertension. So a very simplified version of this paper could be salt and blood pressure. And I want to highlight the results of this. And so one of the first things that you could do is create a very eye-catching title to the tweet to get people's attention. So I can take sodium and hypertension, or sodium intake and hypertension, and I can change it around and shape it or mold it into something that says, does salt intake increase blood pressure? Now I've asked a question. I haven't answered the question, I've just asked the question. So now this is getting people interested. This is a question that's commonly asked, a question that's commonly put out within the medical community, and I'm asking it. People are going to be interested now. Now, to go along with that, you might be able to add a couple of emojis. So is there an emoji for salt? There is. Is there an emoji for what could best represent blood pressure but the heart? So we've got salt and the heart. So always pop in some emojis to represent what you're typing there. Now, next part is going to be you need to put in your particular hashtags. And this is going to be important. What's the most important hashtag? Well, I know for the medical community that MedEd is one of the most popular hashtags. MedTwitter is also a popular hashtag, and also FOAMed as well. If you are publishing or putting a tweet out on a paper and you've got co-authors who are also on Twitter, it's great to @ them. So put the @ and their handle so that they get a notification of this tweet and they can share it as well. Or, for example, if you're part of Menzies, which we all likely are, you can do a tweet and @ Menzies, and then the Research Institute should not just like it, but also retweet it as well. And therefore, that tweet will sit on the timeline of that Research Institute and people can search it. So if you can @ somebody that you think will support it and share it, definitely do it. But hashtags allow for people to search your tweet. So people often in the MedEd community will already be following these hashtags. There is something that comes up where they can click follow, and any tweet that comes up with that hashtag will pop up or populate their timeline. And so I use MedEd, MedTwitter, and FOAMed, 3 of the most popular for the medical community. But in your tweet, you should also be adding a hashtag that's specific to the tweet as well. Here we're talking about blood pressure. So I'm going to add a hashtag that just says blood pressure. So it's specific. So if somebody wants to search something on blood pressure, they can. Now you might be thinking, how do I know what hashtags to use? Go into the search bar, so the search thing down the bottom, and it takes you here and you can click on that trending up the top. It shows you all the trending hashtags and topics. So we've got Budget 22, Ozpol, Will Smith. Now, you might be able to use some of these, you may not. If you want to search a hashtag to see if it is popular, you just type it up top and you can search and see some of the most recent posts that have used that hashtag. Now, if it says the last one wasn't maybe 12 months ago, it's probably not a popular hashtag, probably shouldn't use it. Here you can see MedEd is quite popular. There's a whole bunch, even stuff that I've posted up previously, as you can see 3 hours ago, posting up a MedEd tweet. So I've now got my hashtags sorted. Because I want to link to the paper, you go to the paper, copy that link, and then you can paste that link in. Now, something that's really important here is I have not done what I've wanted to do here. I said I wanted to craft a tweet that promoted the results of this paper. All I've promoted is a gimmicky little title and a link to that paper, but I haven't answered any questions. So something you can do and has been very popular, has even been published in peer-reviewed literature, is something called a tweetorial, where you can actually take a tweet and not just post one, but post a multitude of tweets all in one go. So it's a tweet that's attached to multiple tweets underneath. And so all you need to do is go to that plus button underneath here, and you can click that. And if you click that, it adds another tweet. So the next tweet that I might want to add can include a picture, right? But what I like to do is add a thread in there and put up a little spool. So you can go back to the paper. You can have a look and find some parts of the paper. You might want to screen capture some words if you think it's best, or you could screen capture or download an image or figure from the paper as well. And then you can type something that summarizes what that information is about. You can save it to your phone. You can upload it. You just upload it by clicking that little button of the picture. And as you can see, what I've popped in here is I've now crafted a second tweet with an image underneath. And this second tweet says, so firstly, remember that wherever salt goes, water follows. And I've got water following salt with my emojis. And I've got a graph or a figure that represents what I'm talking about. So now I'm starting to build a picture. I'm starting to tell a story. First was, does salt influence blood pressure? And the next is, well, let's begin the story. First, remember this. The next point may be, well, if wherever salt goes, water follows, if you ingest a lot of salt, that means you're going to hold on to a lot of water. And if you contain water within your bloodstream, your blood pressure will increase. And so you can start to tell this story, again, with images and linking back to the paper. And then, once you've done all that, this allows for you to tweet. You can tweet it. So all you need to do is where in the top right-hand corner, where it says tweet all, that's what you press. And then it actually posts all of those tweets together as one. Perfect. All right. The final point I want to highlight here is once you've pressed that tweet all button, you should be very aware of the timing of your tweets. When are you posting a tweet? So as you can see here, I posted this tweet at 10:33. Your question might be, 10:33, is this a good time? Well, AM or PM? So this is 10:33 AM. The morning generally is a good time to post tweets. In actual fact, early morning and the evening are the best times to post the tweets. You can post a tweet anytime throughout the day, but the best type of engagement that you'll get is early in the morning and later in the evening. And what I tend to do, and it's been a very successful strategy, is I'll post a tweet early in the morning around about 6 or 7 AM. And then at around about 6 or 7 PM, 12 hours later, I will retweet that same tweet. So I won't make it again. I just simply go down to the bottom and click the retweet button. And then that allows for me to throw it back out on my timeline. It populates my timeline again, and people can see it as though I've just posted it. And if they didn't see it in the morning, they can see it again in the evening. This brings us to how you can engage with other people's tweets. And that's the next point. How do we engage, or how should we engage on Twitter? So when you engage on Twitter, there's a couple of things you can do. First thing is, here's a tweet. So this is one of my older tweets. Actually, when I say older, it's from the 28th, so it's only a couple of days ago. And you can see what I've done is what I've highlighted to you before. I've got a very short, catchy title, Physiology of ECG in 2 minutes, with a little heart emoji, and my MedEd, MedTwitter, FOMED hashtags, and Cardio Twitter. I know that's popular for the cardio community. And I've done a video, which is 2 minutes and 20 seconds maximum, talking about exactly what I've highlighted. And you can see it's got quite good traction. 79 retweets, 9 quote tweets, and 347 likes. So this is highlighting how you can engage with somebody else's tweet. So if somebody else posts something up, this is what you do. You can click that button and it allows for you to comment, leave a statement or question or whatever it may be about that tweet. Anybody can read it, mind you, you should be aware of that. The retweet button allows for you to reshare that tweet onto your timeline. So now it's basically something that you've posted. So do not retweet something unless you actually endorse it. That's important. And then the like button. The like button shows that you enjoy that content. And if you like it, other people will see that you've liked it. It can change the algorithm so people can say, oh, Mike Todorovic liked this tweet. It pops up on their timeline, even though that's not a tweet that they've engaged with before. And then finally, you've got this button here which allows for you to copy that tweet and paste it somewhere else. You can paste it onto your timeline, or you can message it to somebody, email it to somebody, put it up onto another social media platform like Instagram, for example, or even TikTok. And finally, you must not forget that when you are engaging on Twitter and engaging by creating your own posts or sharing other people's or commenting, that you need to remember that if you're doing it as an academic or as part of the support staff at Griffith University, you need to adhere to the social media guidelines, social media etiquette. And the university has a number of different websites that you can access. You can simply just Google Griffith University social media guidelines and it will pop up. But basically there's a social media playbook and it gives you some tips, tricks and hints on how best to utilize social media and to make sure that what you are engaging with or posting is on brand for Griffith University, which is extremely important. So I'd like to thank you all for allowing Matt and I to present. We love this type of work. We love engaging on social media platforms, including Twitter, and would love to be able to answer any questions that you might have. Thanks.